approach them, I'd like to ask the city engineer to come up. We put together a brief presentation just to kind of remind the council and the new council about where we stand with road funding and members of the audience who haven't maybe heard this before. But so I asked the city engineer to put this together, and I'll have her walk through it. Council, you do have this information at your seat in front of you.
Thank you all. As Mr. Mackey was saying, that we worked through this today just to get an idea. Yeah, thank you. Just to represent to you, because I keep hearing through social media and different other forums about how much money we have for streets. I'm not sure where that's coming from. However, what I put together and what you have in front of you is kind of the before and after when we started doing special assessments and we had the voted millage. So on the left side of this spreadsheet, those are in 2024 numbers, because they're, as far as the Act 51 money is current day. We receive for the major streets from our Act 51 money, which is the gas tax that the state implements and gives to us every month of the year, $934,000. Of that $934,000, that money, if you read Act 51, says it's for maintenance of the roads, managing street lights, signs, traffic markings, potholes, everything that's within the public right of way, that's and sidewalks and all that stuff, is what that money is for initially. It's not for construction projects, it's for maintaining what you have, plowing the streets and all that stuff. So operationally, of that $934,000, the Department of Public Services, to do their normal maintenance, and when I first got here 5 years ago, I ran this out, and I've run these departments in multiple cities, ran out a 10-year history, and their operational cost for the 10 years is pretty consistent, obviously with rate of inflation and what have you. So their yearly operating is $580,000. So when you take the administrative cost, which is monies that is allowed to go to the general fund to offset the cost of the accounting or the finance department for dealing with these funds, that plus the operating expenses, it leaves you $260,000 of available funds for projects and what have you. Then we go to the local street side. We receive far less money in the local street side. Act 51 actually says that cities should, if they're going to do a construction project with local street funds on local streets, the city is supposed to match that money. So we get $292,000 once we remove the operating expenses for the local streets and the administrative funds. We're at a negative $150,000. We also have now a bond payment to pay for the Westwood project, which is $353,000. So when it's all said and done, we're at a negative $500,000 in the local street fund at the end of every year, depending on what the operating expenses are. So the charter in this city allows for 2.5 mils for street funds, and it is earmarked, I believe, in the charter for street funds, and that's $405,000. Historically, that money has been used to balance the local street fund, and then you have a little left over for projects. Well, in this case, we're negative $499,000. We have $405,000 in that charter, so we're still negative money. We are allowed by Act 51 to transfer some monies from major to local, so we would transfer $100,000. That would leave us $6,000 in the local street fund for projects. So before we started the millage and special assessment districts, we effectively had $106,000 for projects. Then the right side, what I did is take the same monies, I applied in the green box on the very far right. This is what the voted street millage was, that's $575,000. And the average of the 3 years that we've been doing special assessments, our yearly average for special assessment districts, we received $408,000. So those two numbers now offset all of those negatives, and we would end up with the $260,000 on the major street side of available funds for possible capital projects, and just shy of $900,000 of other revenue that we could do projects with, which is what we've been operating on for doing the projects that we've done over the last 5 years. So that tells that story. Obviously, the city can do anything they want with general funds or general fund monies to put it towards streets, but that's over and above what these funds, which is what we operate on. I don't usually look at anything from general fund, because usually they just, if they get allocated, a lot of times I've seen them get spent somewhere else when an emergency comes about, and so they're not available for roads. So in the mix of budgeting and future work, we just don't put it in the mix, because you can't guarantee it'll be there in any given year. And we have to start planning projects at least a year in advance of when we do them. The next page, what I did, when I was with another municipality, we went through an exercise when it came to our tax bill. Because a lot of things that I hear are, I pay my taxes, that should go towards roads. Well, so what I did was I broke down the tax bill. The tax bill that everybody receives at their house is 60 mills. That 60 mills is not just the city. That's the county, that's the school districts, that's the seniors, that's because we are the collections people for all of the county's millages. So of that 60 mills, 21 mills is what actually comes to the city. So and I had the tax assessor give me what an average tax bill is in the city. It's around 3,000, plus or minus, residential only, I'm not talking commercial. So of that $3,000 tax bill, just over $1,000 is what comes to the city for the general fund. Of that $1,000, in the next two columns, you can see I broke out the 2.5 mils for the roads and the millage for the roads, the voted millage and the charter millage. So that total comes out of the $1,000, $300, and I'm talking a year, comes towards the roads from each residential average bill. So that adds up in the end to this $9 million that was on the first spreadsheet for the charter and the street millage. So I just wanted people to understand that, in all the years I've been doing municipal work, even when we went through this exercise in the other municipality, I was surprised because I just hadn't really wrapped my head around the fact that that bill is not all money that stays with the city. It goes to other people, and we're collecting it and sending it off. Dave, what do you want to discuss next? Mr. Mackey? What do you want to do? This chart? Okay. Back when we started talking about doing special assessment districts, we have a program called Road Stuff. Every year, the Department of Public Services and myself, we rate every mile or every block of every road within the city. That's a 1 to 10 rating. We've talked about this in the past. We have to rate the defects that we see on the street. It could be cracks, elevator, there's a whole bunch of them. 10 is the best street. The whole Westwood subdivision as of today is now a 10. You can only reset roads to a 10 if there's a full reconstruction. What we did on St. Joe this year can be raised to a 9. It can't be a 10 because the one block is a reconstruction, the other two are a 9. That's the highest it can go. This system is in very, very poor shape. Almost 75% of the streets in the system are under a 4, which is structurally failing. This graph kind of shows that back in 2020, we were saying, how much money do we need to turn these roads around? The blue graph is a do nothing. If we just sat there and said, we don't have any money, we're not going to do anything. That's the decline you're going to see in the roads as far as the remaining service life and the ratings. The red line is if you were applying 3 mils to the roads. The green line is 6 mils.
Excuse me, the 3 mils is excluding the 2.5 charter?
No, it's total.
Oh, okay, so the do nothing isn't really an option under the charter then because of the 2.5?
Yes, but your 2.5, we can discuss the cost of road construction. You're not doing a whole lot with $200,000.
Oh, right, I know. So the do nothing is just a representation. So if our do nothing is essentially the red line, a little bit worse than the red line?
The blue line is your do nothing. If we didn't apply any monies to any roads on any day.
Oh, don't we have to spend the 2.5 from the charter on roads though?
it goes towards the road budget, you don't have to spend it, no. I mean, if Jason were to have, I'm sorry, Mr. Blake were to have a bad plow year, that charter money can be used for the overage on plowing.
Any sort of road
Any
maintenance, it
sort of
doesn't
road
have to be
maintenance.
earmarked for reconstructions or maintenance. Okay,
Correct.
good, thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I have a question. The way I'm reading this, that it looks like the do nothing, and it has, is that number, when we get up to 2035, the number 20.82, what does that number represent?
So this chart is based on average remaining service life. When a road hits a 4 rating, that's 0 in its service life. It is now met where it's now gonna go into what they call structural failure, which means you have to have a more expensive fix on the road. So if you get out to 2035, that's a negative 20.82.
Oh, it's a
It
negative.
is a negative number.
Oh.
So you're negative 20 years past that average service life.
Okay, I didn't notice that was a negative. So
Yeah,
I thought,
there
well,
it's-
that seems
yeah,
a
white
lot
on white.
You're gonna have 20 years.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a negative number.
Yes, all of the ones, actually all of them are negative because our system is in that poor shape.
Okay.
So that's kind of, this was where we, when we were looking at this back in 2021, or 20 and 21, this was the information I had. Our system is marginally better now. It's not significantly better. With the monies we've been putting forth in the last 3 years, we have been following somewhere between the red and the green lines. We've been staying pretty flat because obviously things decline, things are getting better. You know, the net ends up being somewhere around flat. And then, Mr. Mackey had me print this off of, it's the current day after the ratings that we did this year, kind of where we stand, with regard to, roll up to the graph if you would, please. No, go back to the page, roll up, there's a pie chart. It's on the bottom side of that sheet, so I don't know if it's blown up. Anyhow, you have it in front of you. There's a pie chart, and this. Keep going down, Brandon. There you go. So anyway, what this pie chart, this was based off current ratings, the ratings that we did this year. We have about 2% of our roads have more than 10 years of life left in them, 5 to 10 years left in 30% of our roads, and less than 5 years in 70%. And that kind of goes to what I said about the primary part of this system is in the poor condition. So we're trying to improve that.
And the more than 10 or the 5 to 10, that's without any maintenance?
Well, this is just based on the ratings that we had this year.
Okay.
This is current day numbers, these are a little bit older numbers, so we just ran this chart, because this is based on the current ratings that we did in July of '24.
Okay.
Okay?
So some of those might be able to get more life years without total reconstructions.
Well, so this is where I kind of apply a lot of my experience. Because we are required to rate based on the defects we see. You know, if I go out and see cracks every 10 feet, that road is gonna be a 8 or a 7. Now, I can go out and take a look at a road, and this is just from 25 years of experience. I go out and take a look at a road, well, I'll use Berry Street as an example. I go out and look at Berry Street. Well, Berry Street's rated a 2 or a 3. So that by Pacer system says I need to do a structural reconstruction, which would be like what we did on 1 Black St. Joe. But I can go look at that road and go, this is really, really old asphalt. It's alligatored because it's been aged and never been fixed or rehabbed. The curbs are in great shape. There's really no reason to do a full reconstruction, and the base appears to be in very good condition. That being said, I can go out and say, yes, it's a 2, and Pacer says it should be a structural fix. We don't need that. We're going to mill and resurface it. So that's where we apply some of the, engineering judgment, for lack of a better term. So the ratings are a little flexible, but, if you go and look at Willow Street, Marion Street, sorry. If you go look at Marion Street, that road's completely failed. There's no base there. That has to be a total reconstruction. So that kind of project would be like what we did in Westwood, and cost, I think I estimated that at like $1.8 million to do that entire length of road. So that's some of the things that we apply some engineering judgment to. And when we pick roads, we're looking at that stuff, you know, what's good, what's bad, what can we do, what can we do we have base failures, do we not? And select the appropriate fix. You can't go chip seal all the roads in the city because you'd be throwing good bad after bad. It's a cheaper fix, but you have to use it on roads where it's applicable. Same thing with road reconstructions and milling and resurfacing and the crush and shapes. That's why engineers do this. Any other questions? Good question.
Brandon, could you go back to the last slide, just on the funding needs? It's the last.
Yeah.
That one. So when we were originally looking, or council was at doing the special assessments, we were analyzing the data and looking at, okay, where can we at least get what we perceive to be a positive slope or positive direction towards total, moving the system towards repair. And that's why with the special assessments and the millage, it totals about 6 mils, which is what that green trajectory is. We're a little bit less than that, as Kristen said, it's somewhere.
We're around 5.
Yeah, we're at 5 because her and I sat down and figured it out today. So we're a little bit less than the 6, but we're at least holding our ground, and if we get grants, then we're able to supplement some of that. In order to get to that, these special assessments do input about $408,000 a year. If we were to get rid of special assessments, if we wanted to keep that same trajectory, we would have to come up with $410,000 to keep that trajectory of remaining flat. The street millage, I believe, is to 2034. I think.
No, we voted that in 21.
21, right?
So we're going, it's 10 years, so we're 31.
Yep, so we're at 31, where we've got the 575,000.
And that, sorry to interrupt, that is actually the same length of time that our bond is for. So
Yes.
our bond would expire, it was actually required to be that. So the bond will run out until this voted millage goes away.
So in that calculation though, so we have the charter street funds 2.5 mils, street millage 3.5, so that's 6 mil or about $980,000. If you add the special assessments, that's again very close to 2.5 mils, so that does seem to bring us to 8.5 mils.
Well, you have an arrears, or you have a negative in the local street fund, so if you start backing out the negative in the street fund and you back out the bonding, that's almost 400,000 of that right there. So you take that out, you have available for construction around 5 mils.
I see. Okay, yeah, and I was talking with Dave about this earlier, it'd be interesting to see this redone with post-COVID prices. I was talking with Jason about this, he said a lot of these services, 30-40% increases since this was done.
Okay, so I started in 2020.
Okay, yeah.
I've been doing road construction for years, and yes, we did see a lot of increases in materials. So the prices we're estimating and quoting right now are post-COVID dollars.
In this chart?
In that chart, and I also have a chart in front of me. I went through, I have every special assessment district we've done and the final costs of both what the city paid, the residents paid, and what the final cost of the project was. And then I broke that out to cost per mile, because, and every project is different. You can't compare, every project can't necessarily be compared apples to apples, but it's pretty close. So for a mile of road reconstruction, you can estimate, if we did a full mile of road reconstruction, you'd be paying about $2.4 million for that road. And when I look at all the projects through here, those numbers are hitting right close to what that average is. Our milling and resurfacing projects, like we're proposing for Berry Street, is running right at $400,000. That's for a full mile. And the prices that are in the resolution for just so that you know what my engineer's estimates are for the actual mileage that we're doing. I just ran it up to what an actual mile was. We very rarely do projects that are full mile in length, just because city blocks aren't.
Okay, so this is adapted to 24 prices, even though the start date is
Yeah.
2020.
Well, yes, because those were in $2024. So everything in there was, even though that chart was based in 2020, all the numbers that I gave you in the one spreadsheet are $2024.
Oh, in the spreadsheet,
Yeah.
but not on this chart? Not on that
No,
chart?
I'm sorry, those are $2020. But,
Oh,
but that is just based on road ratings, that's not cost of doing it, but the 3 mils you would get would be just shy of what we're getting now. The only thing different from 2020 to now is the rate of inflation from that point to now.
And I was curious if the 6 mils would still get us on that upward trajectory with the rate of inflation.
Well, presumably you would, because
Okay.
you've been doing work on other stuff, so
Right.
you're taking roads that are a 1, and you're moving them up to an 8, 9, or 10, depending on what kind of usage. So you're moving some projects up above, and then as things are degrading, they're also falling down. Because, you know, every year, they decline. I could show you a nice graph about it, but, you know, it's basically, goes like that. After a couple of years, they really start to decline quickly. If you don't do any maintenance, and you just stand there and look at it.
Right.
So the cost of construction has gone up quite significantly. Obviously, that's across the board. I track all the numbers. All the estimates I do are based on what our local numbers are. Because you can't compare how much it costs us to buy a ton of asphalt against Jackson, because Jackson has a couple plants sitting right in their backyard, so they don't have haul distance. So our cost is more than what the city of Jackson pays because of the haul distance and our proximity to the plants. So there's a lot of things that are regionalized, and the state sees that too. They break their numbers out by different regions of the state. So all the estimates I do are based on what our local numbers are, and I check them against what the state uses for this region, and we're pretty close.
Okay, great. Councilman Wolfram?
So the cost though, does that include like sewer in addition to that? Like up on Westwood, there was a lot of sewer work that went on.
No, because sewer and water are enterprise funds, and you already pay for maintenance of those in your monthly bill for water and sewer, we do not specially assess water and sewer work. Now, we have to distinguish between sanitary and storm sewer. You don't get special assessed for sanitary sewer, but storm sewer is affiliated with the roadside, and you do pay in the special assessments for storm sewer. There is no funding source for storm sewer, and storm sewers are built to preserve roads. So that gets rolled into that special assessment. So on the Westwood project, all the storm sewer that was constructed, plus the road, the curb and drives and all that stuff, is included in the road special assessment. And I actually pull out everything that had to do with water and sewer, and that's funded by a whole different fund.
So can you, was all this, the only sewer that was done on the Westwood project was for storm?
No, there was sanitary and water.
So both?
The road side of that project is $2.7 million. That's what we spent in the Westwood, both phases of Westwood with storm and road was $2.7 million. On top of that, we had almost $100,000 or just shy of $1 million in sanitary work, and then I can't remember right off the top of my head what water is. But all told, the project was $4.8 million, so that other $2 million was water and sewer.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you.
Okay, with regard to the report that I gave you, pursuant to the charter, and you giving me direction 90 days or so ago to present you with estimates and construction drawings, that's what's included in your packet. You will see in this council report the 3 projects we've proposed. Arch Avenue is going to be delayed a little bit. I have some other work that needs to be done because it's got some federal funding tied to it. But Monroe and Berry, if these were to be approved in the future, those projects would be done sometime this summer or fall. Today, we're not asking for any action on this. This is just to present you with the design drawings and the estimates for these projects. we will come back to you in future, in a future date for a special assessment district public hearing.
Yes, the plan would be to set the public hearing for, on February
No.
3rd.
No, March 3rd.
We set the public hearing on February 3rd for March 3rd.
Yes, we would come to you to request the public hearing. Sorry, I apologize.
Good. Anything else? Okay. I think we're gonna have public services to discuss our approach to Berry Street in the next couple weeks here. If anyone would like to attend for that, figure out what we'll do since it doesn't look like the SAD is going to work for that project. Okay, good. Thank you, Kristen.